You're listening to the Product Coalition podcast with Jay Stansel. This is where product mastery happens. This is where careers are made. Welcome to the Product Coalition podcast. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Product Coalition podcast. I'm Jay Stansel, and today I'm genuinely excited about this conversation because my guest has one of those career stories that makes you rethink what's possible when you refuse to stay in just one lane. Beatrice Partain is the Director of Product Management at General Assembly. She grew up in a small town in Sweden, studied across 3 countries, Sweden, Australia, and Ireland, and then made a full career pivot. She went from project management in production automation to product management in tech education and relocated from a small town in Sweden to the great city of Chicago to do it. That international lens shapes everything she does. She calls it her superpower, being uncomfortable in unfamiliar environments. And honestly, that's a skill every product manager needs right now because the environment is, as we know, changing fast. So at General Assembly, where Beatrice is the Director of Product Management, the team there led a major research initiative surveying product managers across 4 countries. The General Assembly team found some incredible things. Some of the findings were eye-opening. One of them being 98% of PMs are using AI every day, on average 11 times a day, but only 39% have ever received any kind of role-specific training to use it really well. 2/3 admitted to using unapproved tools, and nearly half went to learn vibe code, but wanted to learn vibe code, but can't yet. These aren't abstract numbers. This is the state of product management that we're all in right now. And Beatrice is right in the middle of it. Building the training programs that are supposed to close those gaps while also being a product manager herself, that helps her navigate some of these challenges that we're all facing. So today we're going deep on what PMs actually need to learn, the habits that are quietly making the work worse, and where the line is between healthy AI experimentation and just some of that reckless shipping that we've all heard about. Beatrice, I'm really excited to have you join me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm really excited about this conversation. It's so meta to be like working in product for training for product managers. Like it's always just like product inception over here. And so I'm really excited to talk about it.
There's also a personal moment in today's episode for me, Beatrice, because 12 years ago, I was one of the first product managers for training product management for General Assembly back in Melbourne. I think it was 2014. So there's a real full circle moment, and I've got really strong and fond memories of the General Assembly team that supported me when it came to training, not only myself, but also the students that I was stood in front of to provide them a great experience. So I'm really great to come back and be having a conversation with someone from General Assembly once again.
Oh, that's so exciting. Our instructors really are like at the heart of everything that we do. Like we all celebrated, and maybe everyone on this call as well, we all celebrated International Teacher Day yesterday, like Teacher Appreciation Day, especially focusing on, we have teachers who've been teaching with us for 10 years now. And so I'm sure you would know some of them.
Well, to be honest, what's amazing about that is over 10 years. And what I think is so special around what we're going to talk about, and when it comes to these learning experiences, is the human side of it still remains. It's so easy to go and get knowledge from anywhere, but acquiring knowledge from other humans and learning from them instead of learning from just chat completely changes the way we go about absorbing that knowledge, in my experience.
Arguably even more important, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Fantastic. So today, Beatrice, we're going to be talking about future-proofing PMs. And obviously, there's a body of work that went into this study from some of your colleagues at General Assembly. Yeah. Could you talk to me about, just before we go into the details of some of the results that was discovered, what is it about this as a body of work that you thought was going to be interesting even before you saw the results? Did you come into it with any assumptions, knowing your own world and how you're doing product management on the day-to-day? What was your perspectives coming into it?
I think I anticipated a lot of the results that we were going to get because I know how product managers work, right? At GA, we have this like running joke that like students for different disciplines, they all sort of operate a little bit differently, right? Like our data students are always really, really logical, and our software engineering students are always really like methodical. Our product management students are always like very keen to experiment. They're always very like 0 to 1. They've got very like founder minded. And that is a fantastic trait that has huge potential to go very, very wrong in the world of AI, right? And so I think I was kind of anticipating that like every product manager is like off to the races, like experimenting, trying new things, doing all the things. And maybe the technology or maybe regulations or maybe, you know, company policies haven't like quite caught up to the work that product managers are often doing. And so we do get all of these, like we get the shadow stacks and the shadow technology, and we get people who are using it, but they're not really trained on using it. And so there's like inconsistent usage and different use cases across the board. And I don't think any of those results were even a little bit surprising to me as someone who spends time with other product managers. Like, yeah, that is how we do things, and that is how we act.
So within that, I think the first question from me is probably a bit of a product management question. There's clearly skills that people are possibly guessing that they need to develop, hoping that they're long-lasting skills. They're not just skills that are going to dissipate and become, you know, of no value over 12 months' time. But there's probably 2 or 3 skills that are most urgently needed to close, that are going to be needed to stick around for a while, I would assume. Can I ask, if you was to force rank the skills need right now for product managers to harden their careers and be valuable for a long period of time, what would that look like to you?
Yeah. I've got 2 that are sort of on equal footing, and then I think I have 1 that's like the skill. So let me like hold off on that one a little bit. But the 2 that I think are really important are, I think it's really important to learn some version of prompt engineering for product work specifically. And not general, not like generic, but how to get really useful output from really messy, ambiguous product problems. Product managers often are operating with like multiple data sources and often in like a very unstructured way. And it means that over time, especially if we've been product managers for a minute, we have these like trial and error habits that work really, really well on an individual basis, but they don't really scale. And so that kind of needs to get shifted. Like you do need to figure out ways to make things scalable and to sort of use prompting to your advantage and inside of that. And my second one, sort of in connection with that, is like sense making, turning qualitative data into structured data that's readable. But I do want to caveat that by saying that I really do think that one of the things that I think a lot of us did when we started as product managers was like reading all of this unstructured data, right? I would read every single comment that a student had made on every single course that General Assembly ran. That is a lot of work, but it's also like how you build product sense around your product. Like actually talking to your clients and your customers is how you build product sense. And so there's this fine balance between figuring out how to use AI to turn qualitative data and sort of unstructured data and ambiguous data into a perspective, and also not outsourcing your connection to your product and to your customers in doing so. And I think that is like my segue into the thing. Like this is the skills gap that I feel people are still struggling with, and I think we will be struggling with. And that's critical evaluation of AI output. I know that we're all talking about it. I know it sounds like a cliche, but knowing when the model is like really confidently wrong is so key as a product manager. I think I operate very strongly off of like the motto, strong opinions loosely held. And I think a lot of product managers do that. Like your whole job is to have a point of view and a perspective, and you're going to run in that perspective, but you also need to be really open to like new data and new ideas and pivot based off of that. And I think a lot of the times these models are so confident, and it's really easy to get swayed by things that aren't real. And so knowing which data to listen to change that opinion, and like where to pivot versus where to like stand firm in the point of view that you already have around your product, like, don't outsource decisions by accident. Like, if you're going to make a decision, make a decision. If you're going to let AI make a decision, do that on purpose. But I fear that a lack of critical evaluation of the outputs that we're getting will lead to people letting AI make decisions for them without realizing that that's what they're doing. And I think that is just like the biggest risk currently in product management.
So one of the hard things, and I think this alludes to the point that I spoke about in your research, you spoke about unapproved tools.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I think can be challenging for a lot of people is when it comes to their learning journey of developing some of these new skills, how to do that in a safe sandbox that
Mm-hmm.
isn't with their company's data or their company's decision-making projects that are going on right now. Could you guide me through how does General Assembly suggest to PMs to go about developing those skills in a safe way that isn't sort of touching company systems, etc.? Is it hands-on with practice data? Is it personal projects? What are some of the ways that you encourage the PMs to go about this safely?
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on sort of what your goal is and what the tool is. I think in some places it is appropriate to sort of work with your IT team to figure out how to set up a sandbox or set up a separate environment or what have you, in order to do some experimentation. I personally use personal projects a lot, and they don't need to be personal projects that are tied to your job. They really don't. I use AI tools that I don't use at work to like plan parties for my friends. Like, it can be things that are just completely separate, but allow you the fruit, because it gives you separate data, right? It gives you data that has nothing to do with your work data. If you want to practice, I don't know, generating presentations, perfect. Generate a presentation on, I don't know, your favorite stuffed animals from childhood. Like, it doesn't need to be related to whatever your discipline is. And so I think you can sort of go the personal project route if you have like a really clear skill. So I think there's two routes you can go, right? You need to practice a tool, or you need to practice a skill, like a conceptual skill. And if it's a conceptual skill, then you can do it at any data, and you can kind of do it on any tool, because skills are skills regardless of the tools that you're using them for. And so for that, I would go personal project. And then if what you need to learn is like a tool very specifically, like I need to learn how to use Claude, or I need to use Gemini, then I think you should be working with your IT department to sort of figure out what the steps are in order to do so in a safe way. Does that make sense?
It does. And as I said, to me, I can see why unapproved tool usage would be high, so that they can go about trying to do all of that. But sometimes that does go beyond company policies and systems and processes that, as you said, haven't yet caught up. Now, the 66% that I mentioned that are using these sort of shadow technology choices, I think some people are not being completely honest in the survey there. I would have thought that could be even higher, to be honest. But still, it is the majority that's been reported on. And so I can imagine from a CTO perspective, a CEO perspective, if unapproved tools are being used, then that's going to also erode trust back to the product managers that want the new tools. So where do you see where some of the possible damage could be that happens when someone's building using shadow tools, particularly in a culture that may not embrace that type of innovation, maybe they're in a high risk industry, data sensitivity, privacy concerns, etc. What's your thoughts around some of that innovation versus governance challenge that organizations are facing?
For sure. I think the compliance risk, obviously everyone is like well aware of the compliance risk, but I think that's kind of underselling what it is. Like, sure, it's compliance, but it's also like data contamination. If you're accidentally training these models on your IP, that's like IP leakage. So I think there's data contamination risk that's inherent in that. That's not just, well, IT told me I couldn't. It's also like you could actively be harming your own product or the public's perception of the product. If you're working in a public model, are you putting in IP there that your customers can get hold of sort of by mistake, sort of through backdoors? So there's this risk to data, right? But I don't think that's the only thing. I also think we have, like, one of the big one is single points of failure. If you have built something or you're shipping something that comes from a shadow tech stack that you're operating in on your own in your own time, then if you leave, if the tool changes, if an API changes, there's like no one to take responsibility for that. There's no one to handle that. There's no one to backfill for you if you're on vacation. Single points of failure really cause a lot of damage. And we also, especially for product management, like specifically for that's all of these things are true for everything. But for product managers specifically, if you're using tools that aren't integrated with the data that all of your other tool sets are integrated with, that means that you are making decisions, you're making product decisions based off of other data than the rest of the organization is. So you're making decisions based off completely different information than other parts of your org are. So you have this like lack of alignment of like what your baseline information is, which can lead you to sort of tricky places. And then finally, and I know I keep coming back to like the human element of AI, but to your point around like trust erosion, I think it's really important to remember that like IT is your friend. Like as a product organization, it's really important to be building these relationships sort of across the organization, and actively sabotaging the security and privacy concerns of other parts of the organization is not necessarily a very good way to get in the good graces of these teams that do so much for very good reason to protect the company's IP and products and data and all of these things. So I know we all kind of tend to do it, but I really don't think we should be.
But the next question is probably as much personal as it is professional around this data, which is that AI building, conversing, constructing either ideas, presentations, prototypes, whatever it may be, can be addictive. And it can be quite easily a shortcut. Can I ask, how do you maybe at a personal level catch yourself when you're possibly going down that road of taking a shortcut, but it's not in the best interest either for you as a professional or for your organization?
Yeah. I mean, I am a product manager, which means that I'm always coming back to relationships. Like my job is relationship building, whether it's with my customers or it's with my colleagues or it's with my stakeholders across the organization, right? My job is relationship building. And so if I catch myself not having enough relationships in the loop, I think that's the one for me. Like you just did a whole project and you spoke to no other humans. You didn't talk to a customer. You didn't talk to a client. You didn't talk to a colleague. You didn't talk to a confidant. You just like did it on your own. I am under no delusions that I am good enough at anything to be the only person to put eyes on something, right? Like, I think that we hone our skills and we hone our assumptions and our sort of value props and all of these things in conversation and in relationship with other people. And so if that's not happening, I think that's a really good sign that maybe you've like gone down the rabbit hole a little bit too far. If you're relying on a model to be your sparring partner for too long, rather than another person with other lived experiences, right? Because an LLM model does not have lived experiences. And so they have hard data. They don't have, oh, but like 2 years ago, we did this thing and that felt like this to these people. You don't get that like intangible conversation that you can with a human. And so that's kind of my like guiding light, my North Star, the golden thread that connects me to other people. I think is an important part of sort of keeping me tethered to not running too far down. Ooh, shiny, it can build new things for me.
So I love the point that you mentioned of lived experiences.
Mm.
In the survey, 25% of PMs worry that AI will make it harder for entry-level PMs to learn, and
Yeah.
therefore less lived experiences.
Yeah.
Can I ask, are we accidentally removing the repetitions of daily product management that make good PMs, such as the messy customer calls where you just get bombarded with things you've never heard or never anticipated hearing, some of that manual data crunching where when you're looking at the data, instead of looking at only the insights, you actually understand how the data is constructed, how the insights came to be. And some of that painful prioritization exercises, which is obviously always been such a challenge in every organization for every role in some ways, because often that's also being outsourced to the AI. So for those entering product management, can I ask, what is it about future-proofing your product management career for those that are in either zero experience or first 2 years experience, that maybe they're going to miss out on some of those lived experiences that other product managers from decades gone by have just had without even thinking about it?
I think this is like the core. This is something I'm really, really passionate about, because I think that's a valid fear, right? Like I think we, as product managers and as strategists, it's really easy to get stuck in this like mental mistake of believing that strategic skills are common sense and personality. That strategic skills are something that you inherently have, like that you have product sense, that you were born with it. And one of the reasons I think we have this misconception is because, frankly, quite few of us were ever trained as product managers. I know very, very few product managers who started their careers as product managers with, college training in product managers. We're all ex software engineers or ex project managers or ex data analysts or ex something else with a transition into it, right? And so we have this perception that because no one taught us specifically how to be product managers, that these strategic skills that we have are not skills, they are inherent traits that we were born with. And it is simply not true. That's not real. Strategic skills are real skills that you can and should be trained on. It's just that for us, they happened in other roles. So like you said in the intro, I come from a project management background. And so, I had been drilled in stakeholder management in my project management role. And then I transferred that over. That doesn't mean that I just had it magically. It just means I learned it somewhere else. And so I think that by especially like early in your career, it is so important to like lean into the uncomfy, messy pieces of the work, because I think that's where you get a lot of those repetitions in your strategic skills, right? It is like, yes, it is much easier to have your LLM read through a transcript of a sales call. Absolutely, that is faster. But it is important for you to watch one and listen to the tone of voice and see the body language. That's important. It is a way for you to build product sense and understanding of your customers. And so I think I would really encourage anyone who is like really, really new to not, I'm not going to say not take shortcuts, because I think that's important. I think it's important to learn how to use these tools and use them effectively. But I think it's easy for us to sort of go, that part's uncomfortable, so that's where I'm going to use the tool. And I kind of think that it is the opposite. Where it is uncomfortable is where you should put your repetitions in. I know when LLMs sort of started being talked about a couple of years ago, one of my favorite quotes from the time was, it's important to have like LLMs do dull work for creative people, not creative work for dull people. And I think that's really, really true. Like, you have to still lean into the uncomfiest, messiest pieces of the work. That's not what you should be outsourcing. You should be outsourcing like the routine, the daily, the repetitions of the thing, not not the ones that you don't want to touch because it's going to be icky and hard and messy. That's where you should be really like spending your time, because that's how you build that strategic sense.
I'm keen to learn, Beatrice, how do you do this and set these expectations and these reinforcements from a training program perspective, where training is the product?
Yeah.
What does the training program look like that's actually changing behaviors, not just creating awareness of where you should point and click with your mouse for the newest AI tool? What's the difference between those two for you and what you're delivering at General Assembly?
Yeah. So GA has always had sort of the general approach of we teach skills, we don't teach tools. And that's coming from our consumer background, right? Like where we started was like software engineering boot camps. And I think it's really important that you teach mindset. Like one of the very first product management lessons I ever took with General Assembly was like product management mindset. And teaching that growth mindset and teaching, again, like skills, not tools. Like you're smart. You can figure out which button to click. Like we don't need to spend time on that. We do need to spend time with you discussing with an expert who's done it before. We do need to spend time with you in small groups with other product managers, talking about the pain points that you're having and learning from each other and being inspired by each other. Like that's valuable use of time. That's important use of time in a way that like, this is how you log into this LLM in order to connect it to SharePoint is like not. That's you can ask your LLM how to do that. That's a great, like how to learn a tool. The best way to learn how to use an AI tool is ask the AI tool. Like that's the fastest way to do that. What you really need is to understand how to connect it to your work. And so what you really need is to connect it to real workflows that you are doing in your job. And so even in the tooling training that we do, that's not like for product managers, that's more like we're going to teach you how to use Claude. It's not just click here, do that. It's like we're going to show you a demo of how you can use this tool to enhance a workflow that you do every day. Great. Now go out and try it out and do so with an expert instructor who's like looking over your shoulder, who can help you experiment, because truly you just need to like dive in and like get started. But I really think that it's so important to encourage sort of messing about, sort of just like click around a little bit. You're not going to break anything. It'll be okay. And not getting so hung up on doing, and we're product managers, we understand this intrinsically, right? Don't get so caught up on doing it perfectly that you don't get started.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's, in some ways, that's always been the case of product management, is being comfortable with the ambiguity of trying things that you know nothing about and going into spaces that make you feel uncomfortable, coming back to your point earlier. Now, in the survey, 78% of PMs already use AI agents. So most people outside of product still think of AI as ChatGPT. What does agentic AI actually look like in a PM's daily workflow right now? Because you're obviously seeing a lot of PMs coming in through General Assembly that are, I'm assuming, able to share what their daily work life looks like. So the true agentic side of AI, what are you seeing around use cases for that? And how are you tying that back to training around building agentic AI as a skill?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to be very, very honest with you. I think a lot of companies have come significantly less far when it comes to agentic than they think that they have. I think agentic is a buzzword that sounds really exciting and you can do a lot with it, and you can do a lot with it, right? Like we have set up a whole agentic system in our learning department that's really like changing the game, and like how we build curriculum and how much we can customize for our clients. And like, it's really like value adding, and it's really, really exciting. But I also think that companies have a tendency to believe that like, you know, the next new tool is going to be the silver bullet that's going to fix all of the things. And that's never quite the case. And it's not the case with agentic AI either. Agents can do really cool things, but it also can't replace humans that are sort of in the loop. I don't really think I can say much about what our clients are doing, though.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So GA is selling AI training to enterprises, but you're also a PM yourself. How are you personally using AI day to day? And that could be at work or in Beatrice's life. What are some of the use cases? What can you share about your tech stack that gets you through the day? And what are you not delegating to it? Coming back to how do you keep yourself true around when's the right time to leverage AI?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I think is like a common bad habit that I try really hard not to engage with is like I try not to use AI without having a point of view, without having a perspective. Because judgment is my job. Like my job is to make the judgment calls. That's not AI's job. And so one of the things that I really like using it for is like 0 to 1 structure of like slides and documents. I know that sounds really basic, but I find that that's a thing where it saves me a lot of time. So what I'll do is I'll put in like a stream of thought. Like I basically do what I do with my friends, which is send a voice note. I'll send my friends voice notes and be like, you'll never believe what happened today. And I'll do that with my LLM tool of choice and just sort of go, I have this slide deck. I need a slide that goes between slide 2 and slide 3. I wanted to sort of vaguely cover these things. I feel like I'm not telling this part of the story well enough. And then I share the deck and I share my voice note and it'll sort of give me an idea of like what to put there. So I'll have a perspective, but I need someone to take a first pass. And then I'll go back and I'll edit it and I'll make sure that it's true, right? But a lot of the time, it's much easier to react to something than it is to build something from zero. And so having just being able to like stream of thought, like this is what I'm trying to accomplish, give me a first draft, can be really, really helpful. I also really like it for like changing the tone of messaging to different audiences. And that kind of brings me to like the thing that I really will not delegate. And I've said this before, but it's like relationship building, prioritization, and judgment. I think that these soft skills, I hate the term soft skills, but I know that's like industry standard. But these soft skills, we've been saying it for 10 years, they are ever increasingly more important and they're going to continue being more important, right? And so like I kind of view AI as like my intern in that I can give it tasks to do, but I cannot let it make decisions for me. If I'm writing product launch comms, it can take a first pass at like drafting, like these things are important to sales and these things are important to client success and these things are important to, whatever part of the organization. But I'm the one who's building a relationship with my sales representatives. And so it still needs to come from me. I still need to know what's in there. You can't just like run it out the door. You know what I mean? Like it needs to be sanity checked by me because the relationships that I have inside of my organization and outside of my organization, those are my job to maintain. They are not my tool's job to maintain. And the products are my responsibility. They're not my tool's responsibility. And so I think like, I know that we've been seeing this all over the internet in the last couple of weeks of like judgment is the job. But I would probably go a step further and say that like relationships are the job, whether those are internal or external. So I use AI just about every day. It makes me much faster. It allows me to draft things. It allows me to build things. It allows me to ship things at a speed that GA has just never done before. But I will not let it take over my relationships and my judgment because that's why I was hired. Like they hired me because they believe in my judgment and my ability to work with these humans. And I don't think it's particularly fair to my customers or to my stakeholders or to my management to not take ownership and responsibility for those aspects of the job. Does that make sense?
That's a beautiful point, actually, that I think for many product managers need to write on the back of their hand as they're going to work every day, that you've been hired, not you because you know how to use Claude or ChatGPT or whatever. Like they've hired you. And I think for many people, this can be some career fears around productivity and the effects on the number of roles, etc. But at the end of the day, if you believe in yourself and your talents, and you remind yourself that they've hired you as your name on the contract,
Yeah.
not AI, and believing that, and actually you're using the new set of tools to double down on how incredible you already are and why
And you
you've
can do
already been
so many
hired.
cool things with it. Like you can do so much. Like I'm not here to say don't use AI. You should use AI. You should do it in responsible ways. You should be trained on it. If your company is not training you on how to use it as a product manager, reach out to me. We can fix that. You should be using it, but you shouldn't let it be you. Your own background, your personal experiences, like I think you said this before, like your personal experiences, where you come from. None of us, again, we're trained, we all have like other backgrounds. Those make you uniquely qualified to the specific thing that you are doing, right? And I think that's cool. I think that's really exciting. I think it's one of my favorite things about product management is that it sits in this like intersection between all of these other roles. That's a really beautiful aspect of the job. And I don't want to give it up, and I'm not going to give it up.
I love that. I love that. Well, I'm gonna finish on that point around these lived experiences that make us human in the world of AI. It seems so much. I opened with your life experience. I mentioned Sweden, Australia, Ireland, and the US. I'm obviously an expatriate myself. I've been recording for 12 years, people from all over the world in product management, and I love hearing the differences of how technologies are being used or adopted or leveraged in
Cool.
all different markets around the world, but also how those markets are culturally different around how they operate or how companies within those markets operate as well. Can I ask, what is it around some of your lived life experience across the globe that you think has really helped frame your mindset when it comes to everything we've spoken about today? What are some of the key moments on your life journey that has really shaped up these opinions so far?
Yeah, I think I have a very innate curiosity. And I think curiosity is like maybe my favorite trait in a person, like kind of across the board, kind of regardless of the context. Um, and I think so my family is also very international. So like I traveled internationally a lot as a child with my family, and then, you know, as an adult moved around a lot, and I'm still kind of moving around a lot. And I think that one of the you stop making assumptions. Once you talk to enough people from enough different backgrounds, from enough different countries, you stop making assumptions about what is normal, what is sort of assumed, and you start asking questions instead of making assumptions. Because just because something was like, even countries that on the surface look very, very similar, like one might argue that, like, you know, Australia and Ireland, two countries that I've lived in, they're both English speaking. They both, you know, used to be part of the Commonwealth. Like they all, like one might think that cultures are like quite similar and people have like similar ideas about things. Very much not true. Very not the same. And once you stop making those assumptions and you start asking questions instead, and really like lean into that curiosity, I think that has really shaped how I show up, both for my products and for the people in my life, both outside of work and inside of work. And I would sort of encourage bringing that sense of curiosity to your relationships, because people really will tell you a lot of things. People want to say things. People want to tell you what's working for them. People want to tell you what's not working for them. People want to gush about the things that they're excited about. People want to vent about the things that are keeping them up at night. If you stop making assumptions and start asking them questions instead.
That's a fantastic point for us to finish on here, Beatrice. What I really appreciate about your perspective you shared today is that it's as much about leaning into the technology, being brave, being curious, but also being a human, recognize your own self-identity, and don't lose sight of that on your product management journey. So thank you so much for sharing your time and these perspectives with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I will talk to you soon.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you to you, the audience, for listening in to Beatrice and I today. If you'd like to learn more about Product Coalition, you can head over to productcoalition.com. Until the next episode, thank you very much.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Product Coalition podcast, hosted by Jay Stansel. Got questions or want to explore more topics? Connect with Jay on LinkedIn or join the ever-growing Product Coalition community on Substack. Thanks for listening.